Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, friends, and the foes out there, and welcome to another episode of the Blood Brothers podcast with your host, Dilly Hussain. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to remind all the avid podcast listeners that you can find this episode on all 4 seasons on all the major audio platforms. And if you're tuning in via YouTube, don't be cheeky, do remember to click subscribe to the 5 Pillars YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by a prominent but also controversial scholar, academic, thinker, and writer. Dr. Mohammed al-Massari is an exiled Saudi physicist and political dissident who received a PhD in theoretical and mathematical physics from the University of Cologne in 1976. He later became a professor at King Fahd University. In 1993, Dr. al-Massari fled Saudi Arabia and gained asylum in the UK, where 3 years later, in 2 attempts, he successfully fought deportation in 1995 and 1996. In the mid-2000s, he was briefly employed as a lecturer by the physics department of King's College London. Dr. Mohammed al-Massari, assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show.
Welcome with the brothers, all the sisters listening to us. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
Let me first begin by understanding your background, your family background, your upbringing.
Deep in Najd, south Najd of Saudi Arabia. Let me address that.
Oh, really?
My father is Abdullah bin Sulaiman bin Abdurrahman bin Sulaiman bin Mohammed al-Massari, from the tribe of Dawasir. Dawasir is a major tribe in South Saudi Arabia. If you go south from Riyadh, you go to Kharj. Kharj have some Dawasir, but mostly from Qahtan, from the tribe. Qahtan is a major tribe anyway. And then you go south further, then you come in the domain generally of Dawasir. There are a village called Hutat Bani Tamim. That's where Al-Thani come from.
Okay.
That's a small enclave of Bani Tamim. But from
Al-Tamim.
The Al-Tamim of Qatar.
Yes.
Al-Thani of Qatar. But from Huta roughly until the big desert, the empty quarter, that's the valley of the Dawasir and the associated. So it's a huge tribe. One grandfather committed some problem 200 years ago and fled to Hutat Bani Tamim and settled there.
So
and we are from that.
So it's not Masri, it's Mas'ari.
Mas'ari, it's Mas'ari, not Masri.
But you have Egyptian on your mother's side?
Yeah, she's the daughter of Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Razak Hamza, the Imam of 2 Haramain. He was Imam in Medina and Imam in Makkah.
And in which city was most of your youth spent in? Which city?
Essentially, the youth was, it's very difficult to say. I am very international. I would say very ill youth, which I don't remember, is Makkah and Taif. But I don't remember that as essentially baby and so on. Then in 1949, my father went to Cairo to study in Kulliyat Usul al-Din of Al-Azhar, because he was not happy with that, what he got from the Shuyukh in Najd, which he always classified as very low level and trivial. So he went there ahead, and then a few months later, we went there with combined by a grandfather, motherly side, and stayed in Egypt until short before the triplet attack in 1956. We came back in Saudi Arabia just a few months before that. So we did not suffer anything in the attack of Britain, France, and Israel at the time. So that's how many years that is, about 6 years, because he finished his university degree in Usul al-Din in Al-Azhar. That's 4 years, and then he added 2 years in the high school of the Arabic League. The Arabic League has a high school.
He's your father.
Yeah, and they do masters. So he made a masters in courses of 2 years. So 6 years in Egypt. So that's substantial time. When he came back, Jeddah. We stayed in Jeddah only one. The reason he came back, he was really dreaming to go to Paris, because at the time Paris, that's the center of enlightenment. You know how the people are, especially we're talking about the 50s. We are not in the world yet. We're just coming out of the dark ages in Arabia and also in most of the Muslim world, except Egypt and Syria. They were more advanced. But everyone looks at it. So he wanted to have a PhD in the Sorbonne. But at that time, Faisal was the prime minister. King Faisal, the late King Faisal, was the prime minister, and he established what is called Diwan al-Madhalim. Diwan al-Madhalim is essentially, theoretically, on paper, should be something like the highest administrative and constitutional court. As it should be. This is a very substantive and important employment. The president of the Diwan is his uncle, Musa'id bin Abdurrahman. His uncle, genuine uncle, the brother of King Abdul Aziz. For another mother, but the brother. But Musa'id is Ammi, is ignorant. is just a symbolic figure, as a symbolic head. He needs someone who is educated and can run. Then he remembers once meeting my father in a school in Taif, who gave a speech, and you know that he graduated from the classical Najdi circles of Sheikh Mohammed Ibrahim, and he was studying in Cairo. So he said, come, we want you to have the wakil, the deputy of Musa'id. And you must come. Forget about Sorbonne. Back and forth, my father agreed and went. He is de facto the president of the court. But the court really did not have real powers at that time. But nominally on paper, very powerful. Essentially the Supreme Court. On paper, but not in reality. And then Saudi decided to shift the capital city to Riyadh in 1956-57 and started building new quarters in Riyadh, doing infrastructure and so on. And he decided in one go, like Trump, just decide and they rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. The capital city should be now Riyadh. It was until now nominally Makkah. Although King Abdulaziz was most of the time in Riyadh, but Makkah was still the official, and also the foreign office and so on were well entrenched in Jeddah, because they knew if they get blonde people in Riyadh, they will have trouble for the people of Riyadh. For them, any blonde is a devil. So, no. So he transferred there, and the Diwan Mazalim, the headquarters, was transferred to Riyadh, and my father transferred in 1957 and stayed until they went to. So from 1956, I was in Jeddah in the school in the 4th grade. 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, that's about 6 years, I was in Riyadh attending school. So which one is longer and more effective and more influential? Allahu A'lam. He is 6 years in Egypt, 6 years. Then followed 12 and a half years in Germany. So I'm more German than one for Riyadh and one Jeddah.
Sheikh, let me ask you, let me ask you, the education that you had received in your youth up to, late teens. And from your own understanding now and your reading and your experience, do you believe Saudi Arabia was founded upon genuine Islamic principles and values?
Until that time, education was really managed by the mashayikh and so on, and the administration was essentially, in our time, the Muslim Brotherhood members who escaped Abdel Nasser were the people who were writing the curricula and things like that. So at that time, it has Islamic flavor and seemed to be the background of Islam. But if you look, for example, when you study history, for example, in middle and high school, it's European history and the Industrial Revolution and so on. Nowhere is Sira or anything like that, because that's what's available, and the only thing they can do in the regular schools, primary school, middle school, and high school, is the writings of the Egyptian schools and the Egyptian education system, and this is already has been messed up and tuned by the British for a century almost.
What about the very founding of it? Because they say there was one Najdi state in the 19th century, I believe. And then, of course, the one...
In the 19th century, there were no regular schools. There were halaqas about the mashayikh, in which very low level of education, according to my father, I never attended such a halaqa. He said, the best you can qualify someone in the halaqa is that he's essentially reached the primary level.
The early years.
Primary school. That's all.
Okay.
That's the school. And then they graduate and go as judges and so on. So the damage was minimal, because if you appoint a judge with that level, he is judging in a village, and the maximum dispute is about one cow or a camel or a sheep. So it's okay. You can do it with abridged version like Zad al-Mustaqna'. That's a very abridged fiqh. And they have the book of Tawheed that you must memorize of Ibn Abdul Wahab. And you have concerning Arabic language, which they have some importance. You have the so-called Ujurumiyya, the grammar. The Ujurumiyya. Not Ibn Hisham, not Alifiyat ibn Malik. Forget about that. Just the Ujurumiyya. And especially in the time of my father, he was a student in the halaqah of Muhammad ibn Ibrahim.
Okay.
And Muhammad Ibrahim was putting great weight on Arabic. So he says to the halaqah, he's blind, says to the halaqah, so read an ayah or a piece of poetry and tell someone, do i'rab with this one. They get stuck. Most of them are bad in i'rab. You know i'rab, meaning analyzing it grammar-wise, doing the declination of the sentence. And my father said, I can't do it. I said, I know, Abdullah, that you know, don't do it. Let this guy do. Sometimes he tell Abdullah, that's my father, to do it. And sometimes he gets angry, he takes his bisht and leaves it. No halaqah today out of anger. So he was putting weight on that. That's in the halaqah Muhammad Ibrahim. But that's in the halaqahs, which people attend with the hope to become scholar of knowledge or become judge and things like that. But normal school in the formal way we have in Egypt and we have now here primary and so on, they were not in existence. They were in Hijaz, in Makkah, established by the Uthmani or by the Indian, like Solati and so on, but not that.
You mentioned...
When they established, after the Second World War, when they established plenty of them and petroleum started to come and pressure mounted, actually King Abdulaziz's policy was he told his sons, and this is well known in Saudi Arabia, don't educate the people, other if you educate them, they will become rebellious. Keep them ignorant. But it can't be done because in Egypt there was a coup d'etat.
Yes.
1952.
Yes.
And they have to. And Abdel Nasser and the coup d'etat drumming everything. These are backward people. They are American agents. They are this and that. So they have to do something. And petrol is starting to flow somehow. Yes. So they have doing something, meaning establish school. So what to do? Who have schools? Egypt. They have curricula, and Jordan. They take that over
and copy it.
And all the teachers are essentially from there.
Saudi Arabia progresses post World War II. You've got the rise of Arab socialism, Pan-Arabism. How much of a great threat was Pan-Arabism under Gamal Abdel Nasser?
Massive.
Because if I can just depict how it was in a very simplified way. You had various anti-colonial military coups and movements emerging in the Arab world. Syria, Iraq, Baathism, Pan-Arabism, which also fits into the wider Cold War that was taking place, but they were aligned with USSR. Saudi Arabia...
Openly, but we don't know what secretly what's going on.
Yeah, secretly we don't know. But openly...
Secretly was like American and British fight.
Yes, absolutely.
The USSR has very little their input.
Absolutely. Yeah. The simplified take is that these Arab revolutionary military leaders were aligned to the USSR, but we don't know what was happening behind closed doors. Yeah. And there's many theories that they were actually aligned or would be subservient to both parties, if and when required. Yeah. But how much of an ideological threat was Pan-Arabism and Baathism and Arab socialism in the 50s and 60s?
What was massive because the slogan is attractive. The slogan itself is very attractive. The Islamic slogan has disappeared, essentially. Saudi could claim we are applying Islam to the last dot. That's right. نطبق الإسلام بحذافيره. That's their claim. That's fine. That you can sell to the common illiterate people. The majority were illiterate. Now we have the majority illiterate, barely any illiterate ones. I don't think anyone's so old to be from the illiterate generation. Everyone has passed at least 4 or 5 years of school now. So at the time, illiteracy is widespread. And they understand Islam essentially because Wahhabism, Islam, Tawheed is no graves. If you have no graves, that's Khalas Tawheed. That's all of that. The issue of Hakimiyya and rulership and so on are extant because they were against the Khilafah, fighting the Khilafah, declaring it to be mushrikeen and worship of graves. Khilafah Uthmaniyya. So they call them a Rum sometimes Turk or the Rum.
The Romans.
So when the Khilafah collapsed, the common people did not notice anything in Arabia. Not so in the other part of the Muslim world. For example, in India, the Indians were in a state of shock. And the leader came to King Abdul saying, yes, Khilafah is gone. It may have been bad in many aspects, yeah, we agree. But this is a symbol unifying Muslims. What we are supposed to do? The only one qualified who seems to be qualified, and in his domain we don't say anything which is clearly not Islamic, is you or Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a small country, isolated. But Arabia, with the 2 holy places, is very qualified. We give you bay'ah to be Khalifa. But he bailed out of that. Because, you know, if he accepts the bay'ah, next day his head will be cut away by the British. That's not possible. That's not acceptable.
But the British... fraudulently, deceptively offered Khilafah to Sharif, right?
That's to top of the Khilafah Uthmaniyya. Yes. That's something else. And they were never intending to fulfill anything.
Of course. Who was the Ikhwan, Sheikh? The early Ikhwan? Not Ikhwan al-Muslimin, but the Saudi Arabia fighting for
Ikhwan man ta'a Allah.
Yeah, tell us a bit about them. Who
Ikhwan of those who obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is the war cry. Ana akhu man ta'a Allah. Whoever obey Allah is my brother. That's the call, which is a good call.
Tell us a bit about this group.
This group is the following. These are really Bedouins who adopted the Wahhabi movements, mostly in the time of Muhammad al-Wahhab. That's in the 18th century.
Okay.
First tribe to adopt that en masse was Qahtan. Qahtan Asfal in Bisha, the valley of Bisha.
Okay.
But the Qahtan in the mountain, Qahtan Sarat Abida also adopted that. But the one down, and the one down is a very ferocious, strong tribe and first-class fighter. Then Mutair adopted. And Utayba, which they themselves praised themselves, saying, Hinna Utayba Mqawmin al-Sharia, where Utayba, who established the Sharia, were the latest to join because they were more inclined to the Sharif.
Is this the same Utayba that 1979, the siege?
Yeah, well, he managed from the same tribe,
Okay.
Utayba.
We'll get to that.
All these tribes are association. Anyway, since that time, they are Wahhabi, simple-minded, good Muslims generally, no doubt about that. Misguided, maybe, all of that true, but not really fighting for any kingdom or fighting for a king. They think they're fighting for the truth, to erase shirk.
Why were they killed? They were taken out. They were killed and exterminated, no?
Then, when the time of Abdul Aziz, he used them. He did a unique tactic in Islamic history, is that there are many hadith which condemn being Arabi. And most people, if they see the word Arabi, they think it's meaning Bedouin. It is not meaning Bedouin. We have a research about that. Arabi means one who has a citizenship other than the Islamic State. It's not a Bedouin or not Bedouin.
Okay.
That's a correct meaning. We have a research about that called the التبعية الإسلامية وحق تقرير المصير.
Okay.
If you are familiar with Arabic, it's available. I don't think we translated it. I'll check if the translation is complete. That's a breakthrough.
So Arabi is not Bedouin.
It's not Bedouin.
It's the ones who have
But
citizenship.
even people in time past, even Al-Hajjaj, although he's an Arab, who should be eloquent, confused Arabi with bad, yeah.
Okay.
He broadcast between the tribes saying, Bedouin life is bad, Arab are condemned in the Quran, they are also condemned, etc., etc. You should settle. And the settlement he called Hijrah.
Okay.
Immigration, to give it a nice name. You know the classical trick.
Yes, of course.
Give the dog a bad name and shoot it, or give the pig a nice name and lipstick and kiss it. We know that. This is classical, especially for oppressive and tyrants. They master this art. That's their art. So they settled. One from the tribe of Juhayna tell me from his grandmother or great-grandmother. When the people of Juhayna after Izz went to Hijaz, he tried to persuade them also to go to Hijrah and give up their camels. And they were persuaded. It's Arabiya life. And also there are hadith that the sheep are the animals of Jannah, while the camels are tough animals. They are created from shayateen. Obviously, it's metaphorical. It needs to explain properly. But these are simple people. So they came back. They came back to my grandfather and his brother, my granduncle. Told her we were Abdul Aziz, and he suggested we should focus more on sheep and give up the camels and establish villages and so on. She said, "You are stupid. Abdul Aziz wants you to give your camels because your camels is that what you use in war. So he has camels and he will defeat you. Don't do it." So that woman was much savvier than these men.
Okay.
So they settled, but they kept their camels in Najd and so on, and they were the striking force which Abdul Aziz was fighting everyone. Because they're community devoted and he's the Imam, he's the Bay'ah.
Why were they a threat? Why did they have to be killed?
After coming in Hijaz, issues became clear. First of all, Saudi Arabia gained maximum extension and was bordering on Iraq. So they wanted to go to Iraq to do Islamic conquest.
Oh.
Remove the shirk, yeah. But that's not possible because their
borders are defined by the Brits.
The British. They are there, not only divine. They are the British, they are there. Also Kuwait and so on, full of Shia. For them, Shia are kafir. Independent of it's kafir or not, but that's what they believe. And also some here, they are protected by a secret treaty which Abdul Aziz does not dare telling the people about.
So they wanted the Saudi state to expand?
Yeah. Da'wah must be carried. There are graves there, and they're mushrikeen, and they're even British. The Blondies kafir.
Okay.
Red kafir. Humran, that's the name. Humran means the tool of Ahmar. There are Humrans there. So these are crusaders.
So they wanted to go beyond the borders.
And also, in Hijaz, his behavior was questionable because the title, the official title at the time was the following. The title of King was Malik al-Hijaz, King of Hijaz, وسلطان نجد الحقاسية. They said in the conference of 1927, there was a conference where they came and argued with Abdulaziz, and Abdulaziz confused the Mashayikh and was able to Mashayikh against them. They said, Sultan, okay, Sultan meaning authority. It's okay, it can, although. But what is this Malik al-Hijaz? We gave bay'ah as Imam, not as Malik. Where do you get this Malik from? And the Mashayikh goes, no, Malik is meaning just Sultan, but in another language. They played with the guy, but there were very many demands there. And then the rebellion started. Ultimately, they agreed upon, Abdulaziz made a tactical move similar to Abdel Nasser after the defeat of 1967. You remember? You don't remember, you were born after that, definitely. But I remember what he did. He made a public speech, say, I'm responsible for the defeat, I'm resigning. And his, obviously, his agents and so on were rallying the workers from outside Cairo, Al-Mahal al-Kubra, where you have the biggest concentration of fabric industry and so on, and full of buses when coming to Cairo, say, no, Abdel Nasser must stay, he must get victory to remove the shame of the defeat. He must do it. So he came back, said, on popular demand, I'm coming back.
Yes.
Same, I did the same in 1927. So maybe Abdel Nasser copied Abdulaziz. He said to them, A'udhu Billah, I resign, take it, I don't know. And then his agents said, A'udhu Billah, we take refuge to Allah that you force Imam Muslimin to resign and split the Ummah. And the opposition remained silent. They cannot do anything. They say, okay, you remain an Imam, but we have free hand to go towards Iraq. And they went towards Iraq to fight. While the British bombed them and the Abbasis killed them in the back. That was their mistake.
Now, let's move a bit forward now. How significant was the fact that the Ikhwan al-Muslimin, the political party, the movement...
The one of Hassan al-Banna.
Yes, and of Sayyid Qutb.
Yeah.
When did the fusion begin? The mixing of their political ideas with the theology of the Saudi state. When did that mix happen?
Later, in Saudi Arabia only.
Yes.
And then it went like a virus, infecting the other more
How
or less.
significant was it?
The infection?
The mixing, the influence.
The influence is dictated by necessity, because what happened, Hassan al-Banna tried to make essentially slogans, the Usul al-20, the 20 rules or 20 fundamentals. He did not develop any details, ideology or fiqh. Even the statecraft, he did not develop anything. He did not even say, for example, concerning the state, we adopt al-Mawardi or Abu al-Farra. He even avoided that. Just general principle, amorphous principles like shura, like justice, brotherhood, things like that. That's obviously not enough to make a constitution. Constitution has to be more structured than that.
Oh.
And then rallied the people who were in a shock after that. He started his campaign 1927-28, roughly like that, was 26. After the public demise of the Khilafah. And everyone in Egypt, elsewhere, were in a state of shock. I mentioned the Indian. So he rallied the masses. Several years later, but he has in his mind that to establish Islamic State, or to re-establish the Khilafah without saying it publicly. Then he participated in the political life. Then he was assassinated, as we know, after at the time, King Farouk. Very complicated things. We don't want to go into the details. And then they were also participating considerably in the army and in the coup d'etat in 1952. And they were the main personality politically. We give the following episode. When the people, after the coup d'etat, like several months, masses were obviously moved by parties like the Saudi and like the Wafd, these are semi-secular parties, moved to march towards the government palace in Qubba and so on, saying the Askar, the army, function is to be in the barracks, not in the political process. The political process should be by politicians elected by the people. The co-etatists were in a state of shock. So they asked the Muslim Brotherhood and their leader to help. So they got Abdul Qadir Awda, rahmatullah alayh, a major thinker.
Initially, they were allies, right? The military, the Egyptian military and Ikhwan al-Muslimin, to begin with, were together.
Allies.
Allies, yes.
Allies, all Allah knows what they're really in the heart.
Yes.
But from the Muslim Brotherhood, it seems to me they were sincere.
Yeah.
From the military side, they were not sincere.
Of course.
Abdul Qadir Awda came to tell me, that's what shocked them. Said, you are absolutely right. The position, the place of the army is never in the political process. They have to protect the border to be in the barracks, trained, ready for that. But we are in an emergency situation. Within a year, we need a year to get things stabilized and get the British out, because the British were still there. There were negotiations to leave, not to leave Suez, not to leave Suez, it's ongoing. I promise you, election will be started, everything will be going the proper, correct way. Abdul Qadir is a specialist of the law. His book, Nizam al-Uqwat for Islam, is one of the best books written in the last century. And he's, I think, professor of the law in the University of Cairo, if I'm not mistaken. Don't take me for that.
Big personality.
And then what is even more shocking, so he said, now you disperse and go home, and made with his hand like that. All the people turned and went home. So the military looked to each other, said, this man is having enormous power. We have to find something. And they concocted the story that Abdel Nasser was allegedly assassinated by someone. Maybe they will be mentally deranged Ikhwani, but also it may be a secret service, and they did not shoot Abdel Nasser, shot near to him. False flag, standard. Intelligence services are skilled at that. And then they start cracking down on the Ikhwan Muslimin, and one of the first to be apprehended and hung, Abdul Qadir Ola.
Sahih.
And the other leader. So they ran away all over the world. The majority of them found open arms in Saudi Arabia.
Why?
Because Faisal was the prime minister at that time. He recognized that this is a first, once in a lifetime opportunity. We can use them to play the Islamic card properly. By the way, Faisal, many people do not know. Faisal, his model, which he was imitating, but saying this man was doing things in a high speed, which is a mistake. His model is whom? Ataturk.
Really?
Yeah.
Because usually amongst many circles, King Faisal is praised for the oil embargo.
That's the old brothers in Pakistan, India. Shah Faisal. Rahmatullah. Where is Shah Faisal to fix things?
You're saying Arabs don't have this opinion of him?
Who?
Of King Faisal?
Also some Arabs. And it's added to that in cooperation with Yasser Arafat. He made him Shahid al-Quds. And you know the famous picture.
Yes.
You know that.
It's a very famous picture.
This spin, you have to learn the spin. Our people did not learn it. Now they are learning the spin. They're going even to the extreme that if someone even sincere, they put question mark.
So the open arm policy of Ikhwan al-Muslimin by Saudi Arabia was seen as a religious stamp of approval and justification to counter Pan-Arabism. And
Faisal used it for this. Tell them, come, you're our Muslim brothers, but the country and the people are still backward. They are illiterate. If we do a political activity like we used to do in Egypt, it doesn't work. We don't have election, we don't have parliament, we have nothing. So leave that and do everything else.
Education.
Lecture, education.
Engineering.
Also summer schools, all of these things, engineering, everything. Even the teaching programs in the Ministry of Culture or Education.
So a lot of tarbiyah was Ikhwani.
From that on.
So
the existing books have been edited and developed and so on by the Ikhwani until the 90s. One point also, Hassan Banna, there's an episode many people do not know. I will mention it because it's worth mentioning. Okay. When he made Hajj after the Ikhwan were established, like in the late 20s or early 30s, he asked King Abdulaziz, we would like, you are the only Muslim government in the world, maybe with Afghanistan, all others are not applying Islam in full, would like to open a branch or an office of Ikhwan in Saudi Arabia. Abdulaziz was in a state of shock, but he, as the cunning man he was, said, there's no need. I am Ikhwan Muslimin. Regard me as the branch office. So that was that. But now they need not a branch office. They need complete presence of the Ikhwan, and then the Ikhwan are sophisticated. For example, they need the right things which condemn socialism and communism. Oh, communism you can't condemn. Atheism, no correct.
Yes.
But condemning socialism, condemning Arab nationalism, you need sophisticated ways of thinking, like the thinking of Muslim Brotherhood leader, the thinking of Sayyid Qutb, and so on, who can represent that in a language which is also taking care of the Wahhabi background in Saudi Arabia. You have a book called Naqd al-Qawmiyya al-Arabiyya, Criticism of Arabic Nationalism. The name on the book is Abdulaziz bin Baz, but if you read it, it's the Ikhwan who has written that for him. It's a modern, advanced language.
Okay.
So they did the function excellently.
When did the honeymoon period finish between?
Oh, much later. In time of Faisal, he regarded this card as very efficient and can present to everyone. but he did other things. For example, he did a campaign for so-called Islamic cooperation, التعاون الإسلامي أو التضامن الإسلامي, going to Africa, going to Pakistan, establishing the Shah Faisal mosque there, all of these things, pretending to be humble and accepting everyone and so on. He's a master of deceit. That's number one. While internally, any dissidents will be brutally killed and dispatched off. You know how the method of dispatch of King Faisal? It's very unique.
Do tell. Tell us.
It's very simple. They take you in a plane, fly over the empty quarter, and drop you there while you're alive. So execution and burial at the same time.
Wow.
That's Imam al-Muslimin, Shahid al-Quds.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's Rabb al-Khali, yeah?
Rabb al-Khali.
Rabb al-Khali.
So
empty quarter.
it went like that. But also, he was happy to have them for other reasons besides that they can give them a staff and so on, because the local people and local mashayikh, they are backward. They're living in the past centuries. But he needs people to, for example, to populate the Rabitat al-Alam Islami, the World Muslim League.
Yes.
He needs people who are living in the world in the 20th century, not people coming from the 18th century like the mashayikh and Najd. It doesn't work. And he needs them for improving the education. It's all of these things, and also to work for him international, because you know this is an international organization. They have a leadership maybe in Cairo or run away elsewhere, but they will communicate with the other Ikhwan to adopt Saudi Arabia and put it forward. So, and he won considerably by this, with minimal money expenditure.
1979 was a significant year for two reasons. It was the year of the Iranian Revolution, led by Ayatollah Khomeini. It was also the year where the siege of Makkah happened by...
at the beginning of the invasion of Afghanistan. But
and of course the invasion, yes, and the Russian invasion.
Before that, before that,
sure.
Faisal was, although his mother is from Al-Sheikh, he's half Al-Sheikh, half Al-Saud. Or more than half, because the mother gives you more genes than the father, we know that. But he's still Al-Saud, and he's still a Kemalist deep inside himself. You
describe King Faisal as a Kemalist.
Yeah, as I said, that's his model. But that's the only secret in the background. Nobody knows that except the people of internal access.
That's a huge claim, Sheikh.
Yeah.
Some will be watching who have very positive opinions of King Faisal for his famous speeches in Rally of Palestine, the oil embargo.
That's all just to play with that, because the only way to stabilize the throne, because otherwise, what is Saudi Arabia doing with that oil money? Palestine and so on for the princes and money for them, and American bases, and doing nothing for Palestine. As Abdul Aziz was one of the people who contributed considerably in destroying Palestine. Stop the revolution of the 30s in Palestine.
How significant was the Iranian Revolution of 79 on Saudi?
Let me just complete quickly. So, and he was, although his mother from Al-Sheikh, he wanted to get rid of Al-Sheikh dominance, because the agreement between Muhammad al-Wahhab and Muhammad bin Saud is that the Imama would be in the Al-Saud, and the Mashayikha will be hereditary in Al-Sheikh. How to get rid of that? And especially at his time, Muhammad Ibrahim was a bull, strong man. There was once a confrontation between him and King Faisal in some issue, and he said, "What are you going to do about that if I don't follow your instruction or your fatwa?" He said, "Very simple. We remove you as we removed your brother Saud." So Faisal's mind that didn't do anything. This is dangerous now. This guy thinks he can remove me by his fatwa, but he did not want to rock the boat. So the best thing, wait until he dies. Then he dissolved the Mufti. There's no Mufti Am anymore. And then established a General Presidium of Fatwa Irshad, the one and whose head is that? Who is have best reputation after this one? Who is not from Al Sheikh? Bin Baz. And there's a weak person and blind. Put him there. Finishing Al Sheikh dominance or
so Sheikh Bin Baz was not from the lineage of Al Sheikh.
No. Bin Baz is not even from the lineage of any tribe. There was one dispute between him and King Abdulaziz in an issue concerning zakat and so on.
But the current Mufti is from that lineage.
He's even the lowest of the low. He's useful for nothing. He's even academically a failure.
Iranian Revolution. How significant was that in Saudi Arabia?
After Faisal, Fahd followed a very almost open secularization policy. Okay. But he's intelligent and he's non-violent, relatively non-violent. So he said, the best thing, we send as many shabab to study outside, study anything, Just go there, learn drinking, dancing, and bring the Western culture and decadence back home. So we can soften this religiosity. That's in the 70s. That backfired. Most of them came religious back. And television is loose. You have even girls with mini skirts there in the 70s. But late at night, not during the day. So the mashayikh are awake, and so on. And he continued with that. Even he closed outlets for the Muslim Brotherhood, like the WAMI, the World Association of Muslim Youth, used to have a budget title in the Saudi budget. He cut that. So you live on donation, collect donation. And was planning to close them in due course. Because they said he's not violent. He's very gradual, very smooth. Then suddenly the catastrophe happened in the year 79. All in one go. First one, I think, happening. The first one is the Iran Revolution. The invasion of Afghanistan is a bit far away, can be managed until it takes some time, but this one. At the beginning, during the revolution, I was there, obviously. I was already an assistant professor. Assistant, not associated. And at the beginning, he was issuing statements which shows wisdom and reasonability. Saying, we hope that the Iranian people are our brothers. We hope that the brotherly Iranian people will settle their conflicts peacefully. And we hope that the government will take care for the needs of the people and vice versa. Something which is cheap, easy to say, and does not make you an enemy to the Shah, nor enemy to the people. Then, one night before the Shah left, he gave an interview. He said, we are with the legitimate regime. That day I was going downstairs from, the housing of the University of King Saud was not built yet, so we were housed in flats somewhere near the hospital of Shemesi. I was going down, and the deputy secretary of the Minister of Information, he's a member of staff in King Saud, but he was on loan to the ministry as a deputy. He was going down, say, have you heard this calamity? Say, what's a calamity? Say, until now, Fahad is continuously saying something which does not commit anything. It's cheap, easy. Yesterday or a day before, he said this nonsense. And the day after that, the Shah is in the plane leaving the country. Meaning the people coming after the Shah will be our enemy now. Because he's with the legitimate rule, me with the Shah. Which kind of ruler we have? I said, that's the ruler we have, and we have to live with them. Nothing can be done about that. So then now he is stuck. But the Iranians were busy, obviously, with the revolutionary situation and setting, and they did not show any hostility to Saudi Arabia. But clearly, if a regime which have an Islamic title...
It's a competitor. It's a competitor, right?
Not only a matter of competitor, the problem is not the Islamic title. The problem is that regime is having accountability and have election.
Iran
and that's what we were discussing in the university. I was there. I know what's going on. Everyone was discussing. For example, the Saudi may say, it is chaos in Tehran, people are demonstrating. All the members of staff in the university and the students and the people who are really intellectually say, well, this is an excellent sign, meaning the people are savvy and they can demonstrate and demand and settle with the government properly. We should have that here also. So obviously the intelligence will report that to him. Everything the Iranians are doing compared to what in Saudi Arabia, no election, no Majlis Shura, no local administration, nothing at all. It stands out.
You're telling me Saudi Arabia didn't have a Majlis al-Shura in 1979?
It doesn't have, no.
Are you sure, Sheikh?
Absolutely.
There was no scholarly advisory panel to the leadership?
Absolutely. It's not a scholarly advisory panel. Majlis Shura was elected from the people. Until now, they don't have even. The one they established is the one appointed by the king. So it's not really Shura in the proper sense. It's Majlis Istishari. Okay. It's a bunch of consultants you appoint. That's your consultants. Majlis Shura supports the consultant and the people representing the people, by definition.
So you're saying that the Majlis al-Shura should be from the people?
Yeah.
Not
Otherwise, it's not Shura.
Yeah.
You can appoint experts. Maybe here in this operation, you need 2 experts to help you in certain areas. You appoint them, they belong to you. They advise you because of their expertise. But the purpose of Majlis Shura is that the people express what they need. And you tell them, we can do that, you cannot do that, the budget allows, doesn't allow. That's the purpose of the Shura. It's like a parliament.
Now,
more or less.
Now,
there was a Shura at the time of Abdulaziz, inherited from the time of the Sharif. And he promised to keep the Shura and also local election in Hijaz only. But what he did, Nobody, no nobody was elected in that shura until they died out. So the Majlis died out, and also local entities were allowed to exist until they died out.
Sheikh, I know we are fast forwarding a lot of significant events and milestones, and entire books and studies have been written on, let's say, for example, we spoke about the early Ikhwan movement, the rise of Pan-Arabism, Gamal Abdel Nasser, the siege of Makkah by Utaybi, the Iranian Revolution. We are fast forwarding through huge historical events. So I want to...
But it was really a shock, definitely. It was an ethical.
Of course. But staying on this kind of chronology, the first Iraq war and the beginning of the Sahwa movement, right? Where even its outcome was felt in the UK, where there was a split amongst Salafis. Those who were with bin Baz's position, which legitimized the presence of US troops in the Holy Land to fight Saddam, who invaded Kuwait. And there were those who opposed this. Was this another huge significant event?
It was, but the Sahwa is earlier than that. Even the Sahwa started really as a counter movement to Fahd tried to secularize.
Okay.
And they were competing. But then when that was Afghanistan happened, then Fahd gave up. So, we have to push the brake. It is dangerous. No more. Put an Islamic mask, a nice one. Even the title, His Majesty, has been cancelled. I am the servant of the two holy mosques. That's in the year 83.
Because Saudi Arabia funded and backed the jihad in Bosnia. It funded and backed the jihad in Afghanistan.
Not in Bosnia. No, in Bosnia, no. Not in
sure, not in Bosnia?
No, in Bosnia, no. They were fighting against the jihad in Bosnia and punishing you if you come back. They don't. The only Arab or Muslim leader who visited the Muslims in Bosnia and gave them at least lip service is, you'll be amazed.
Pakistan.
Benazir Bhutto,
Yeah, but Pakistan, they also did an airdrop of weapons to the Bosnians when there was an embargo. So you're telling me Saudi Arabia did not fund the jihad or support or aid the jihad?
Absolutely none. It's against their instruction. I was in prison. I was asking the intelligence operator and so on.
But in Afghanistan, they did.
In Afghanistan, did, because that was sanctioned by America. The America regarded as an opportunity to pay back to the Soviet Union what happened in Saigon.
Yes,
it's a revenge of Saigon, but they wanted to go full scale there, and the Pakistani are cunning. Excuse me if I feel that's racism. It's not racism. They told the American, listen, are you crazy? These are mountain people. If they see a blonde man, they think he's Russian. They're going to kill you. Let us do the job on your behalf. You just get the weapons and the money here. But you don't have money. Get money elsewhere. The Americans said, oh yeah, we have a cow here. We can milk Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia make the money and also send jihadi Arabs, encourage jihadi Arabs. And the Pakistani manage everything. But don't put foot in Afghanistan. Don't. You will be killed. We manage everything. And that's what has happened. And they managed and so on, and they succeeded by the blood of the Afghani and the Arab Mujahideen. Now the Arab Mujahideen were excited by opening the door for the Afghani leaders to come, because they were famous with their big beards and so on. I was the representative of Sayyaf in Riyadh, collecting money for him, for example. My father also, my father. So they were welcome, but even before that, and he came in early 1984. So early it was that, but also the government was saying, the Russian, the Mulhideen, the Kuffar are fighting Muslim in Afghanistan, help the Muslim, anyone going there, we'll give them discount ticket or even free ticket to go to Peshawar, and from there people will receive them and train them, and so on. At the same time, things must be balanced. At the same time, they give you discount, I think 50% discount, Saudi Arabian Airlines ticket to get you to Peshawar or Karachi. And from there will be people managing you. They give also 50% discount to go to Bangkok. So if you want jihad there, if you want fornication, it's available. What is available? We're fine. We're good people. The servant of the two holy mosques is open-minded for everything.
But you're saying the Sahwa began before the first Iraq war as a reaction to
King Fahd inflamed it.
Okay. Saddam invades Kuwait. There is now a genuine threat.
That's much late. You mean Saddam? You are ignoring Saddam invading Iran and rechanging the whole shape.
I mean, but that war was backed by the US. US was behind Saddam against the war in Iran. But I'm talking about the events which led to the boiling of the Sahwa movement, the scholarly opposition to American forces in the Arabian Peninsula and the site of the two holy mosques. How significant of a split was that event? Because there was a list of scholars who basically opposed bin Baz's position, right?
Yeah, but what happened is the following. There were negotiations in Jeddah, they failed, and Saddam insisted on invading Kuwait. It was a spontaneous reaction.
Yes.
It's not really prepared properly or anything like that. And I remember myself, I was, it was the night of Thursday. Thursday is a holiday in Saudi Arabia at that time. Now they made it Friday and Saturday, and Sunday maybe. Anyway, that doesn't matter. And in that situation, at that time, I was writing the old book of Tawheed together with a member of staff. I don't mention his name so he doesn't get in trouble. He's still alive, but he's in King Saudi University. We're writing a new book of Tawheed, criticizing the Wahhabi position and showing that it contradicts Islam and Quran. So we were working and he suffers insomnia. So the only time we work is the night of Thursday. We work until Fajr. We pray Fajr together. I go to my house. He go back to sleep. So I was sleeping. I neglected to pull. Normally I pull out the telephone so I don't disturb. Just mention the story so that people have something to enjoy. That's just a joyful anecdote. Telephone rings like crazy. Who's calling at 10 hours? Look at the clock. That was clocks, watches at that time. 10 o'clock. I didn't sleep enough. No, leave it. Fajr was like 5 or 6. Again, I went to the telephone, plugged, lifted. It was my sister in London. Say, you are, I said, where are you? I said, I'm sleeping because I was all night up writing books. She said, the whole world is upside down. Saddam invaded Kuwait and the American Navy is on the way. And they show even nuclear weapons being lifted and so I said, this is all pictures. Do you believe this nonsense? These things will move in months. It will not move now. I said, what should you do? I said, complete your holiday, enjoy it and relax and you'll come back safely. Nothing will happen until you finish your holiday of 1 month. And I unplugged the phone and went to sleep. Then I waited to hear the news at 2:30. No news about the invasion. Met the people in Asr, Salat al-Asr. No news about an invasion. Next day, Jum'ah, no news about an invasion. Saturday, no news about it in Saudi broadcast. Only on Monday at noon, they report that an Indian newspaper talks about invasion. And in the evening of Monday, King Fahd appears, losing 20 kilograms in a few days there, pale, and saying, we are shocked by Saddam's behavior, and we have asked friendly and brotherly countries. Now, brotherly countries are irrelevant. Whose brotherly country can give you any help? Nobody can give you. So, friendly, America, to come. What we announced to the people is that they got fatwa from senior scholars, the Council of Senior Scholars, which I call usually the Cardinal Convent of Saudi Arabia, or the Sanhedrin. Choose anyone who they like. Our Sanhedrin, the Jewish High Court. Or the Cardinal Convent, Majma' al-Karadila, or the Sanhedrin al-Yahudi. The fatwa is that it's okay out of necessity to defend Kuwait. To defend Kuwait, that's the fatwa. That's what they announced. To defend against Saddam if he invades Saudi Arabia. It transpired later. People interrogated Ibn Uthaymeen and said, how can you give a fatwa that 400, 500,000 come? Which is clear to come to destroy, to occupy Kuwait and destroy Iraq. He said, Wallahi al-Azim, we gave only this. We are told we need a symbolic force of few thousand. There will be like a stumbling block because Saddam will not dare attacking them, otherwise have trouble with America. And they will be on the border. That's it. And he was weeping. That's it. So you tell him, why don't you say that publicly to this, to exonerate at least this?
Who reported this, Sheikh?
Some Shabab who knows him. That's orally. It's all tradition.
Okay.
Yeah. I said, I am a coward man. He said, that word, Ana Jaban, I am coward. I cannot do that. So that's what even if it is not true or true, the fatwa was only to protect Saudi Arabia, not to invade Iraq. But the Americans don't care about any fatwa.
They invaded Iraq.
Yeah. They invaded Iraq after that. But stopped short from stopping Saddam Hussein for various complicated considerations. And Saddam, because of his stupidity and Allah blinded him, did not do the right step. The right step would have been simple. The moment Fahd called for these forces, He should have invaded the Eastern Saudi and hold the oil field and tell America, listen, if you come, we negotiate. That's it. But he doesn't have anything in his hand because Kuwait is not something he can negotiate with. But the fields of Saudi Arabia would be. But that is gone. Now, in the scholarship, the Kuwaiti royal family and so on, many Kuwaitis ran away from Kuwait, came in Saudi Arabia. The regime used that very skillfully. These are poor people, they have persecuted, they left their country, we have to help them. So many Islamists, Muslim Brotherhood and also Sururi are essentially the Saudi version of Muslim Brotherhood,
Yes.
but with a Wahhabi ideology.
Yes.
Or the separate organization. They don't like the Ikhwani and the Ikhwani don't like them. So really hostile to each other. Unfortunately.
Well, the Sururis and the Ikhwanis.
Yeah. They're hostile to each other.
Well, even now or historically?
Until now.
Okay.
Until now.
The Sururis are seen as Ikhwani.
They seen.
They are commonly...
But they say, no, we are not Ikhwani, we are Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The Ikhwani say, these people have broken their bay'ah. They should have given bay'ah to us and listened to our murshid, Irshad. The problem with Ikhwani is this issue of bay'ah is breaking their back. They will never get out of it.
Okay.
Which is an empty bay'ah. Anyway, that's an ideological issue that can be discussed in a fiqh session, but that's the reality. They got busy with that. I told many people, we were discussing, we are helping these. There was also housing which was built, but was not given to the people out because of certain problems. The Riyadh housing, these high rises, they gave it to the Kuwaiti. And our colleagues were busy going back and forth and helping. Said, people, did you lose your mind? These people, the Kuwaiti regime are multi-billionaires. They can support themselves. And even Saudi is multi-billionaire. They should pay from their pocket and should stop doing that. Why are you doing that? I say, this is a charity. I say, this is a charity in another occasion. If these African people have been expelled out of their country and they are poor, that's a charity. But it's not a charity. This is wasting your money and your energy in supporting Al Saud and that regime. Anyway, they didn't listen. The majority was the split and with Al Saud, against Al Saud. Fatwa is correct, fatwa is not correct, etc. Until the development happened, as you see. The Americans came and they hammered Saddam without removing him for reasons. It's still not clear why they didn't continue. I think Bush, the father, recognized that remove Saddam at that time will be a nightmare.
Brothers and sisters and friends, I see that you're enjoying the content. How come you've not clicked subscribe to the 5 Pillars YouTube channel? And if you're watching via Rumble, how come you've not subscribed on our Rumble channel? If you like the content, you like the guests, you like what we're talking about, it's absolutely inexcusable and cheeky for you not to click subscribe. Thank you and Jazakallah khair. What are the events that led to your exile or you leaving Saudi Arabia? What happened?
In that occasion, after the invasion.
Because just for the viewers and listeners, I mean, look, at the beginning of the podcast, I gave you an academic introduction.
Yeah.
But anyone who Googles your name or goes to AI and says Dr. Mohammed al-Massari, they will obviously see other allegations. They will see things linked to terrorism plots, or...
We can answer these if necessary, but this is later related to King Abdullah and the assassination.
Okay, but so what led to the exile?
The exile is the following. There was an intellectual movement which will have ultimately political implication, but was only intellectual and literary against postmodernism and hadatha.
Okay.
Postmodernism. That was going through the 80s. Encouraged by Prince Abdullah, because his advisor and controller, essentially, Abdul Aziz Tuwajri, said, the Haras al-Watani, nobody knows what Haras al-Watani is, just like a national guard. It has been modernized and developed. It has good arms and so on. But we want to introduce it to the public as also a center of ideas and intellectualism. One of it is to have the Janadriya festivity. Originally, Janadriya were established to be a camel race, Arabian camels and Sudani camels, 2 races, and prices are given. That's the first year, I think, 81 or 82. Mm-hmm. Then the next year, they added to so-called a popular museum, where Bedouin art, which is obviously a simple type of art, like jewelry made out of silver and things like that, and carpets and things like that, rough carpets. The Bedouins will not produce carpet like Kashmir or Iran, definitely not. Vast difference in level of civilization we displayed. Then the year after, they said, we will rent from King Faisal Foundation some halls to give some lectures about literature and so on and modernism. That's the third year. Fourth year, they expanded it, and there was discussion about philosophy, epistemology, Kant, Hegel, there, and so on.
Enlightenment.
And then I participated in one of those. Just in one full lecture and one comment on a lecture. That comment on a lecture and that one lecture went viral in all Saudi Arabia. So that's interaction. But all with...
What was the lecture on?
All just with a social philosophical cover. No the addresses of politics, election, and things like that. Nothing.
Okay.
Then when the invasion happened, that essentially stopped because they don't want to rock the boat, Abdullah and so on. They were busy with the calamity which has hit them. And then when the war was over, Saddam was defeated, then clearly it has been shown clearly that the Saudi army is a fake. It doesn't exist. Actually, the money spent with the army went all in the pocket of Sultan and co. Barely anything. It's just a shadow army. It's just a joke. And the people were cursing Sultan even in the public domain. Nobody there going. So we were encouraged now to give some advice. Change must be done. And then in that occasion, the letter of demands, which contains 10 or 12 demands, essentially shura, elected shura, essentially independence of judiciary, accountability, what should happen to the army, what the strength should be, control of money, all these things.
12 demands.
12 demands.
What was the name of this document?
المطالب, خطاب المطالب.
Okay. And who signed it?
They came for me to sign. I was not at home, so I didn't sign. But the number of signing them is in the first page. They are signed about 400 in other pages. But the first page accommodated for 50 plus 2, 52. That's the reason one of the founder of the Committee of Defense of Legitimate Rights, Abdullah bin Hamoud al-Tuwaijri, give it the nickname B52.
B52.
B52. Bin Baz and Uthaymin also signed, under some pressure. But the 50 there, a cream of judges, of business people, and so on. And they succeeded in keeping it secret until it's handed to the king office. And reportedly, Fahd was outraged and phoned Naif, the Minister of Interior, say, what's the use of your ministry and your intelligence services if you cannot detect that something is like big like that is being processed? Anyway, what to do? He referred to the Council of Senior Scholars, or the Sanhedrin, it's called the Jewish Sanhedrin, our Sanhedrin, Majlis Sanhedrin, because someone leaked that letter to a news magazine in France, Al-Muharrar, and those commented about it internationally. Allegedly, even the Communist Party of China commented and say, the first time we see a religious movement which can lead the masses. It is not true what the people claim that religion is necessarily
in Reformation. Like in terms of reforms.
No, and even revolutionary action. Say, it is not true that religion is the opium of the people. At least Islam is not like that. Yeah. So look at that. So it has international standing. The king to this opportunity say to the council, look at these people. They want to scandalize us. They are not advisor. They are not sincere advisor. Because advice must be secret.
Or quiet.
And they should communicate in that direction. Which initiated, we say, further split. People said, we have to be silent. And I said, not be silent. But the cream of the university, especially King Saudi University, not Imam Mohammed al-Saudi University, the so-called secular university. This name is nonsensical. The general university, King Saudi University, is taking the lead in all these actions. I was able to persuade them, don't worry about all of that, because they were in a state of shock. They thought these demands would be accepted, at least some discussion would be happening, and they received the documentation, this claim that it is violating the secrecy of advice. So I tell them, don't be upset. You expect more than that. You are just simple-minded. You think the world is so simple. The world is more complicated. Let us expand that in full detail. So it's not just general headline, Majlis Shura, what's the Majlis Shura, how to elect, and so on. So we write a document which is called مذكرة النصيحة, the memorandum of advice, which is about 60 pages.
Did you participate in that?
Yeah. So the others were just endorsing.
And that was in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, inside Saudi, in Riyadh.
Okay.
Why? Because the others are either Ikhwani or Sururi. They don't have the depth for this issue. Only one further person is known. I can't mention it. That's Professor Abdullah Nafi'. He's an excellent administrator, and his background in administration to the section about administration. He wrote that one.
But was that the reason for your exile?
Then after that, again, they issued it was leaked again, although we handed it over to Ibn Baz. I myself and Dr. Khalid al-Hamidi traveled to Taif. It was summer, and gave it in the hardware. We're going to Ibn Baz, say salam and so on. Said, Sheikh, this is an advice in detail. And we know that if we give it directly to them, they will discard it. But you take it, you study it, correct as you think, but it is out of our duty, responsible to Allah, in your neck. Yawm al-Qiyamah.
So you had this conversation with
with Ibn Baz. With Ibn Baz.
And how was he when he received this document?
He was very respectful. Jazakumullah khair. I will read it carefully and without enforce it.
162 pages.
60.
160 pages.
He started, and he read it. I will read it with a committee of 5. Committee of 5 is that there's 5 chosen from the Sanhedrin, and they have scholarly credential. But again, the same what we, the one who is maybe really having bigger classical scholarship is Afifi, because he's originally from Egypt, so he's graduated from Azhar. So I have some background in usul, in mantiq, and philosophy, but it is an old back. It's still generally a Wahhabi. And the others are Ibn Baz and co. And the Hidan, the Chief Justice at the time. Mm-hmm. And the Hidan, we give him the title because it rhymes now, the Hidan, the Shaitan, the devil.
Oh dear.
He was there. Then the king came to know. Salman came to know, the current king, and the King Fahd came to know. And before Ibn Baz said, I hear that you have a document called Mamlakat al-Nasiha and so on. Why don't you forward that to me? Say, Ya Khadim al-Haramain. Concerning two holy mosques, because His Majesty has been cancelled. No Majesty, no. We are studying it with the Ajna al-Khumasiyya. We have addition, we have construction, and so on. We will do a proper job, and we will bring it, inshallah. The king could not say anything. It's a very reasonable answer. Then again, someone, most likely Salman himself, bin Abdul Aziz, what to do? The best thing to leak it to Al-Muharrar again. Then the king called Ibn Baz, telling him, these people are not sincere advisor. They leaked it. They want to scandalize us. It is Al-Muharrar. We said, it doesn't matter. It was given to us before Muharrar. We are studying it. If someone made a mistake and leaked it, doesn't matter. Say, no, you have to transfer it back to the Council of Senior Scholars, to the full Sanhedrin. I order you as your king, as your Wali al-Amr. So Baz has nothing except to accept. And it was transferred to the Council of Senior Scholars. Now, the Council of Senior Scholars, the majority of them are agents, anyway.
Sheikh, some viewers will be watching this and they'll be like, the language that you use to describe the Saudi leadership. It's no surprise that you posed, at least from the perspective of the government, the regime, whatever you may want to call it, that Dr. Mohammed al-Massari is a threat. He calls out scholarly panels that, like the Jewish clerics, he calls them agents. He basically...
That's after the action, after we evaluated action in time past. We did not call them that. We went to Ibn Baz with all six. Before that, we were writing advice to Ibn Baz and complete ideas and so on and give it to him. We're doing that.
But it sounds like...
Even the rulers, although we know some of them are munafiq kafir, we knew that because we know their internal. We have relations with some members of the royal family. And they tell us about these things. We write to them in all respect and give structured advice. I was in the nuclear committee of Saudi Arabia and we wrote sincere advice.
But to call them kafir munafiq is a very, very, very serious accusation.
Based on that, what happened after that.
Okay, we're gonna talk about this because it's now linked to the latter part of the podcast. But just again, so there was a initial document, 12 points of reform, leaked. Then there was an elaborated version of it, which was 160 pages. Yeah.
Again, Council of Senior Scholars condemned it.
Yes.
And then we came to a conclusion, a group of people, myself, Dr. Sa'ad al-Faqih and others, really the leader of the writer of Mudhakarat al-Nasiha, and also the leader who wrote the Khitab al-Matalib, the cream of people who are the leader.
Okay.
We came to the conclusion, now the only way to go is have some kind of organized action. Now in Saudi Arabia, any organization is prohibited. No union, no parties, no association. So what to do? We have to choose something which is the simplest and most basic, which is least offensive. We thought a lawyer committee, which defend oppressed laborers, defend certain rights, and to make it clear that's a labor committee, we will put it in my father's law office. Because after he left the Supreme Court, or the Madiwan Mazalim, he established a law office. So anyone have a Mazalama and so on can write to that one. And we call it Legitimacy Difa Committee for the Defense of Legitimate Rights.
CDLR. CDLR.
CDLR.
You founded this?
In May 1993.
So it didn't last long because you left Saudi very quick, right?
After that, in 94. So we said we have to do an organized action, but we have to get an occasion so it justifies that. So we formulated everything, prepared everything in the house of Professor Abdullah al-Hamid, who died, rahmatullah. He died in prison, by the way, on cancer which was not treated recently. So a scholar who is a little bit hot-blooded spoke against al-Saud or something like that, so he was detained in Bareda. Al-Duwayan, Ibrahim al-Duwayan, Sheikh Ibrahim al-Duwayan. So we met at Abdullah al-Hamid's house and decided to go public with this declaration. But when we were meeting, someone phoned say they released al-Duwayan. He's not there in prison, so it's gone. Then a few days later or a month later, he was detained. And then the moment of detained in the morning, we met in the evening and issued the communique. And the whole world erupted then. BBC called, this called.
After you declared it?
Yeah.
And how long between the declaration did you leave Saudi Arabia?
No, after the declaration, there was 1 week standoff. The secret police chief invited me and discussed with me and so on, said, because my father was called by BBC and his English, he has English, but he's not as eloquent, say, we have appointed my son, because his English is good, as a spokesman to call him here. So he called me. I made a comment which tried to be, obviously, to be reasonable and so on. Oh, yeah, we know the conditions. So the secret police invited me, took me at night, as usual, that's the way they come, at midnight, and they stayed until Fajr, and were released at Fajr. And they say, and he pretended to be a good man. Maybe he's a good man, I don't know, because he's a student of my uncle, who was also in intelligence, Uncle Abdul Halim. He said, do you know that what you said to the BBC is so shocking for them? I said, is anything shocking? I said, it's a committee. If a worker is oppressed, we will work for him for free. That's it. Lawyer committee. Like the lawyer committee in Minneapolis, St. Paul. There's a famous lawyer committee there. Say, that's in America, doctor. We are here. This hits them as if you beat someone naked after putting cold water on him. Imagine what will be the pain.
So declaring this and it being covered by the BBC that for free, you would be working for the rights of labourers.
And other things.
And other things. But
anyone oppressed.
Yes. Any oppressed people.
As lawyers.
Yeah, as lawyers, you'd be advocating for their rights.
Yeah.
And that was...
And taking their case for free in the courts. That's it.
Pro bono.
That was, yeah, pro bono. That was absolutely not acceptable. It was shocking. And he said, please don't give any...
More interviews.
Any interviews to anybody. I said, okay, I will see what I can do. I will consult with the committee and see.
Did you give any more interviews?
I don't remember if I gave or don't give. That was just, he attempted to resolve the problem in between and say, I love your uncle, he educated me and he made me really a good intelligence officer and educated me that we should be like the FBI, we should be really an investigative authority, following procedures, due process and things like that. So he said, I hope one day this will become like the FBI and things like that. Nice talk, Allah, if that's in his heart or that's just a way. I said, okay, I think Then we were invited to Prince Salman, who was the governor of Riyadh. And we have him a dispute and discussion with no resolution. He said, I don't get you. After the discussion about the CDLR and the reason of it and the demands, he said, actually, why am I discussing with you? I have order from the authorities, meaning the king, obviously. Who is the authority above him? He said, the king, the minister of interior. That's it. I have orders to ask you, did you really sign? Especially he means certain people. You know, some people that are weak, like Sheikh bin Jibril, rahmatullah alayh. He's a good man, but extremely weak. If you are the signatory, or you want to step back and say, sorry, I am crossing out my signature, then we forget about everything. All of us said, no, we have signed it, and we know what we did, and we think it's legitimate and properly. So we left. That was on Saturday. Few days later, they came at near Fajr, pushed my son against the wall, took me to the higher, where I stayed. That's the political prison south of Riyadh, where I stayed about 6 months.
6 months in prison.
6 months. All others. My father and some mashayikh were not taken in prison, but they were prohibited from travel. And my father had a diplomatic passport that was taken away from him.
Were you tortured?
Yeah. But medium torture is not really severe torture.
Okay.
Beating with stick and so on. No electrocution or something like that. Other people suffered much more. And the others were taken for a month, 14 days, 15 days. I stayed for 6 months. And I was released. While I was in prison, Abdullah Hamd rahmatullah alayhi, with others, including Sa'd al-Faqih and so on, they decided there's no way we can have good communication and good broadcasting in this country. We need an office, just an outpost which broadcasts our ideas. The majority will be in the country. They will be doing their opposition work, their corrective work, but we need a tongue outside. We need someone speaking on our behalf outside. And they discussed and they decided the one who can speak is Mohammed al-Massari, Sa'd al-Faqih, and so on.
And the UK would be the base?
And then they waited for me to come out to see which country to be chosen. And they were thinking, because I mastered German, that Germany will be correct. But I said, we are mistaken. Germany is a provincial area. It's like sending someone in the country backside. It's not an area where you do politics. The Germans are outside the world, they're not have politics. The only place you can go is either UK, Canada, in English, UK, Canada, and America. America is hostile. They will hand us over next day. Canada may be okay, but Canada is far away. And tourists do not go there. We need a place which you have good protection of the law, even if they hate you. We know what happened to Karl Marx. He had all the protection. Although he was calling for killing kings, he had all the protection. Because they are cunning enough to know how beneficial that for their own politics in Europe. We know. And they will, and we know that they are very hurt that the Saudis doing all their business with the American, following American instruction, not British instruction. So we can play that card. And it is near enough, and tourists are abound there. So at least in summer, we can meet tourists and discuss with them.
Sheikh, let me just
ask the decision.
I want to ask you something, because your critics who describe themselves as, or are seen as Salafis, the ones who criticize you, they'll say, look, Dr. al-Massari is someone who we regard as takfiri. He accuses the Saudi leadership of treachery, of kufr, of this and that. Yet he comes and gets residency in Darul Kufr, in the land of the kuffar, protected by the laws of the kuffar, to then basically criticize Saudi.
First of all, it is their claim about that. I will refer to the book about Muwala and Mu'ada, and what's Darul Kufr, and what's the condition of being there or not being there. So there's nonsense. They are playing the same Wahhabi old thing which Muhammad al-Wahhab was doing to anyone leaving him and going to another domain.
What about non-Muslims? What about non-Muslims who might be watching this interview? And this podcast does have a non-Muslim following amongst white right-wingers. They'll be like, so this man, yourself, he was causing issues in his own country. We've given him residency or asylum.
No.
To cause further trouble.
I've confronted people say, you do not give, the law gave me, and the law is what enshrined in the Geneva Conventions, and your own law, change your own law, will not have come. That's it. You respect your own law, or tell us this law is made only for us, for Christian, or for those who acknowledge the king and the queen. Okay. We need to talk equal terms.
So your counter to that would be that the law exists,
And it's based on international law, the Geneva Convention, Article number
And it
2.
should apply to all without prejudice.
So it must be applied to all. Otherwise, it's a fake. You're playing games with that.
But you're saying that if you don't like the law, change the law.
I know it is a fake.
Okay.
The intention. But as written, it is like that. And we know it's a fake. For example, look at the ICJ now. They are looking how long now for the issue of what happened in Gaza. Is it they issue a temporary injunction that it was stopped because there's but the final ruling that's a genocide is still outstanding.
Yes. Still ongoing.
But they took only a few months or few days to condemn what Russia is doing in Ukraine as a genocide.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we know it's fake.
But
we show you that you are fake.
We've spoken a lot about history, and you've spoken about the formation of the CDLR, the document of the advice to the Saudi leadership. There's going to be people who will be watching this interview that will still label you or will still see you as someone who is being commonly described as extreme, takfiri.
They have to define what extreme and see their position. They should spell out.
Extreme would be non-mainstream.
It doesn't matter. No mainstream. I don't care about their mainstream.
Within the
extreme is someone who, according to the hadith of Rasulullah or the Khawarij, that they're extreme. Ghulat, he called them Ghulat, and yamruquna min deen. They exit from the deen, whatever the meaning of deen, and that need to be analyzed further, by the way. Like the arrow coming out of the bow, okay? And he described what is the reason for that, why it is happening. They read the Quran, doesn't go down to their throat. And people were speculating a long time, what does it mean? It simply means they are not digesting it, they're not understanding it properly. So they go to extreme. For example, they read the ayah, La hukma illa lillah. There's no ruling except for Allah. So when Ali, alayhi salam, accepted tahkim, they say, Anta kafir. You accept the tahkim in the deen Allah. But they didn't read the ayah about if they have dispute between husband and wife, you send the hakamain. They didn't read the ayah about al-hukm ma anzallah. When we reveal the Torah, يحكم بها. In al-hukm illah, meaning the original ruling come in the revelation, that's lillah only. After that, humans will rule and judge and administer according to that was revealed. That's Khawarij did not understand. That's extreme, based on ignorance.
So that's ghulu you're talking about.
That's ghulu.
Okay.
The ghulu is extreme in Islamic language. Another example, the other famous hadith, I think it's very important for people because it's really shocking. When in the final pilgrimage of Prophet ﷺ, he died after that 2 months, I think. Yeah, 2 months or 2.5 months. He settled in Muzdalifah. And told Ibn Abbas, he was putting Ibn Abbas behind him with the camel, in some part Ibn Abbas, in some part Usama ibn Zayd, in some part Al-Fadl ibn Abbas. So exchanging the boys one after. So all are happy, okay? That's the messenger of Allah. He's gentle, he knows how to please everyone as much as possible. So in that occasion, Ibn Abbas was behind him. From Arafat to then he said, Ya Ibn Abbas, collect for me stones for throwing, for jamarat, for throwing the devil. We know it's a symbolic act. There's no devil there. It's a symbolic. That's why the devil appeared to Ibrahim alayhi salam. So you express your condemnation for the devil by throwing stones. Ibn Abbas said, I selected stones the size of hummusa. Hummusa is like chickpea or the smaller one, the smaller chickpea. I don't know if they have this big chickpeas, but anyway, it's no larger than a chickpea, which is like that. And I put it in his hand. I collected for him maybe the 7 for the first day or more than that for all the days. I don't know, but he collected. So he put it in his hand and was looking at the people standing, wanted to hear what he comments. He was amazed, alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, بِمِثْلِ هَذَا فَرْمُوا. With this size, you should do your rami. Okay, that's fine. That's a suitable size. Meaning, that's enough. Because there's no devil, nothing. It's just expressing your rejection and hostility to the devil in a symbolic act. For that, the smallest possible, which makes sense, is chickpea. Smaller than that will be like dust. You cannot throw that. Okay. But the further sentence is shocking. What do you say? وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَالْغُلُوُ فِي الدِّينِ. Don't go extreme or ghulu in religion. Don't overboil. The Arab calls it ghulu, like boiling over. Extreme in religion. And the next one is even more shocking. إنما أهلك من كان قبلكم الغلو في الدين. What destroys nation before is going extreme in the religion.
Okay.
That's meaning, instead of throwing this, it's more pious that I throw a big stone. Whoa. With the result that someone standing there will get his eye plugged or killed.
Sheikh.
So that's the ghulu. That's the definition of Sharia and definition of Quran. The Quran says to them, لا تغلوا في دينكم ولا تقولوا هذا الحق. Don't exceed in honoration and veneration, admiration of Isa. He's definitely wajih, definitely high ranking. His mother is the most holy and pure woman ever lived on earth. Indeed. But don't get him out of a servant level, supreme servant, into a divine level. That's extreme. That's getting out of the border of logical necessity.
Sheikh, I'm going to ask you 4 questions.
So what the people say, ghulu, extreme, and so on, this is blabbery, like the usual talk here. Terrorism, that's terrorist, his mother is terrorist, that's terrorist. This is the way they spin politics and play with the common masses. Our job is to dispute that and refute it and show the people it's not true.
Sure. Sheikh, I'm going to ask you 4 more very specific questions because to bring the podcast to a close. I want to get your thoughts on the following 4 things. Question number 1 to you is, do you believe the current rulers of the 50 or so Muslim countries fall either into kafirun, zalimun, fasiqun? Do you believe they fall into one of these 3 categories?
It depends. For example, in Afghanistan and Yemen, I would say they cannot classify as zalimun, fasiqun, or kafirun. They may be backward, living in the previous centuries, and they're not to blame. Afghan is coming from the high mountains with mashayikh. That's what we have in India with that mentality and these books.
Okay.
It's more than that.
Okay.
So they are backward, maybe having dark age mentality, yes, but we can't classify.
Okay, Afghanistan.
The same with Yemen. Now look to the other areas. For example, let me take an example of Iraq as an example.
Do you believe any of the rulers are kuffar?
It may be, we don't know. But what for example, the ruler of Iraq, Sudani now, we know that he is an American agent. He's a shoe in the foot of the American. Maybe he's under duress because the budget comes from America. The money of the oil is going to America first. And they give him with the drops. Maybe he's under duress, so he has an excuse. Maybe he's happy with that.
Have you ever made takfir?
We don't know.
No, I know, because, when we look at the situation of a ruler, we have to understand, is he under duress? Is he disappointed?
I'm not discussing the rulers, I'm discussing the system.
System, okay, fine. But
this situation of Sudani must change. That's what is the message of Tajdeed, and my message is that Sudani is excused. He can have an excuse Yawm al-Qiyamah. It's not our issue.
Sure. So you're talking about the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always.
But I think the vast majority, or not vast majority, sorry, I would say that.
Or the one doing an action is irrelevant because this relates to is he excusable in Yawm al-Qiyamah. Meaning you are trying to say, essentially, I will make it, put in a language which is a bit shocking. Essentially you are saying to Allah, move aside, I will sit and judge. No, I won't say that. I say this action according to Quran and Sunnah, like for example, Sudani. Let's give Sudani example. Sudani may be under duress, maybe all of that. But he ought to be not a prime minister under this condition.
Okay.
There's no sword on his neck. So for me, he's an American agent. Actually, he's a shoe in the American feet. Fine. This state of affairs is not acceptable and must be changed if necessary by force. What happened in Sudan, Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah is the one who will do it, and he more than infinitely qualified to do it. I don't need to comment on it.
So
that's the problem of jihadis, that they think fighting is connected to kufr. That's a mistake.
So you make a distinction between the ruler as an individual who may not...
And the system.
And the system. Okay, so let's talk about the system then. Still related to question number 1.
Yeah.
Do you believe all the current political governance system in place, bar Afghanistan, are systems of kufr?
Yeah, look at Saudi Arabia. Permission of usury banking, accepting to be under the American flag and invading Iraq and allowing their forces to go. These are acts of kufr.
Jordan?
With a clear Quranic evidences.
Jordan?
Is so clear. Jordan even worse.
Syria now under Ahmad al-Shara?
Also. We will not say one in the world, but until now the system is still a system of kufr. The laws and regulation, everything.
So what my second question then
How to change it?
is, what do you posit then? What are you proposing? A dastur? What are you proposing to them? And why should they take your constitution with any seriousness?
No. Yeah,
or anyone's constitution for that matter.
No. It's not they should take my constitution. It's they should how to get the Ummah to have authority in its hand and then make a decision. That's number one.
Okay.
And then when it gets a decision, the Ummah has to decide, or the majority of a certain country or a certain tribe, depending on which kind of structure you have in the case of Syria, it's more complex because you have various regions and areas which have some kind of local rule and things like that. But let us say, take just one tribe or one area where we don't have this issue.
Are you talking about Shura or Ahl al-Hali wal-Aqd? Which one are you
No, there's no Ahl al-Hali. That's a fiction.
Okay.
It doesn't exist. Okay. There's a Mawardi and the Wa' al-Farra invention. Okay. Shura is the Shura of all Muslims, and everyone is entitled to vote, excluding few things which the law will regulate. Okay. So that's it. When that people in one domain, which is a homogeneous domain, that is the ideal case, but there are no ideal cases which need certain treatment. I will advise to read our التوعية الإسلامية وحق تقرير المصير, هجرة التوعية الإسلامية حق تقرير المصير for these details. They come, they have their shura, they establish their parliament, or elected assembly, or constitutional assembly, and they decide on a constitution. They have the freedom to decide whatever they want. They can't choose a kufr constitution. Then we will tell them, this is a kufr constitution. You will be accounted Yawm al-Qiyamah. Assalamu alaikum, bye-bye. That's it.
That's it.
If they choose the Islamic constitution, that's best for them in dunya and akhirah. That's it.
So you're essentially calling for the people to actually have the right.
That's the authority, because that's what Allah Subhanahu said. The tamkeen, establishing the state, that's a mistake of Hizb al-Tahrir, by the way. Because Hizb al-Tahrir understands Talib al-Nusra from the Messenger of Allah as the way to establish the dawla. Is not to establish the dawla. Talib al-Nusra was to get protection for him as a da'iyah. That's all. Okay. The dawla was established later.
That's quite an Ikhwani approach.
No, it's not an Ikhwani approach.
No, to give the people...
It's the Sahifat al-Madina and the treaty to Najran. Ikhwani approach of the communist...
The power to the people, bureaucracy, all of that stuff.
No. If Ikhwani approach or the approach of the Communist Party of China is irrelevant. What the text says. Sahifat al-Madina, history shows that with necessity, and Najran, and the treaties made with the people in Syria by Abu Ubaidah and others. All of that is being finalized now in writing and will come.
So
that's what came from over seven heavens. We stick to that.
So put a constitution together. If the people choose it to be a kufri one or a mix of bits...
Then we tell them you are living in a domain of kufr, you have chosen kufr.
So that would be your job and the job of your movement.
And before that, advise them what should be done and give them the right constitution and participate.
Okay, what if they tell you... So let's play along now. This is now leading me to question 3. You've created a movement or a lobby group or an advisory panel.
Let's say party,
whether in exile or in the land itself. Why should they listen to you if a decision has been made that Khilafah or Sharia or Imara is not going to happen? So, Sheikh Dr. Mohammed al-Massari, please be quiet, because you said to give to the people. The people have decided they don't want what you want.
Okay, so what can we do?
Will you carry on reminding?
You continue reminding. Okay. And not choosing the best for yourself, neither in dunya nor in akhirah.
But now you're causing fitna in the land.
No, I'm not causing a fitna in the land. I'm putting ideas on the table.
You're going to encourage people to rebel against the leadership?
No, I'm not encouraging. Say, get your act together and make... if the regime is oppressive and protecting itself by material force, by the sword, you can use force against it in a described manner. And we have a writing about that. But this is an extreme case. We talk about the normal standard case.
In which exceptions, in your recollection, do you think removing a leader by force was justified? Give me some examples in history, modern history.
The hadith and the Quran is clear. If he becomes fasiq, then his wilayah collapses, because you cannot obey a fasiq. By the text of the Quran and the hadith, which has mutawatir, by the way. Not 1, not 2, not 4, 5, 7, 8.
Is that someone who is a fasiq in his private affairs or in governance and rulership?
No, fasiq publicly. It doesn't matter. لا تطع منهم آثما أو كفورا. الحديث كلير. إن كان إمام الحديث about الأئمة من قريش. ما إذا حكموا عدلوا ويسترحموا رحموا وإذا وعدوا وفوا. فمن يفعل ذلك منهم فعليه لعنة الله والملائكة والناس أجمعين. That's the hadith you find everywhere. But the real part of the hadith has been hidden by many mashayikh. I don't want to mention, I mean, ancient mashayikh. I don't want to mention their name so that people will get in rebellion. So leave them in their graves for the moment. What is the rest? Which comes from four different channels. What the rest says. فإن لم يفعلوا, what we are supposed to do, then put your sword on your shoulder and exterminate them.
Mm-hmm. You said
فإن لم تفعلوا, if you fail to do that, then accept to be حراثين أشقياء. You will be serfs like under feudal lords. Then accept being lowly and being just living day to day, harvesting something, eat some of it, and the rest will go to the feudal lord. That's it. That's how the universe works. It doesn't work otherwise. And the people have to learn that and know how to. Now, how they manage it in every equation, will be the rebellion successful or not successful? That needs work, needs organization, needs people who are savvy, needs a lot of employment of the forward tactics and so on. But the principle is clear. So these are these conditions for that.
You said there were 4 conditions.
Hmm?
You said there were 4.
These three. I said the 4 channels of narration.
Sorry, 4 channels.
It's not one Sahabi. So say, oh, this is Ahad. Maybe the Sahabi was sleeping and then he heard something in his dream and he thinks, no. There are 4.
Now, Sheikh, okay, then that leads to my 4th and final question to you. And that is, what do you believe is the priority, number 1, for the general ummah within the Muslim world? And what would you say to the rulers of these various countries? So first, what is the priority of the Muslims in the Muslim world who want to see change in their governance and in their societies?
I think the first priority, there's 2 types of priority. Something dictated by necessity. If you are invaded by force and your country taken like in Palestine, priority would be fighting the invader. Become fard. Leave that. Under any reasonable banner. Preferably Islamic banner.
We're not talking about invasion or occupation. That's different.
Yeah. That's one. In other situation, the priority is really to review Islam and understand it again, probably. That's it. And then it will structure your thinking and the way your behavior.
And
that's it. And the job of an Islamic party should be educate the people about that.
Not seeking Nusra.
No. There's no Nusra. Nusra, I said, the Messenger of Allah is seeking it for protection of da'wah. That's what he was seeking. If you seek Nusra for protection of da'wah, no problem.
What can it be done through the ballot box, voting?
What do you mean ballot box? The ballot box does not give you Nusra. It doesn't give you Nusra.
You can gradually come into some level of power.
It's not gradually. Nusra for someone who has authority and capability of protecting you by the sword, if necessary. That's the Nusra. That's the reason, for example, in the Messiah asked the tribe of the people of Muslim Shayban, and asked them for protection. He explained his and said, you have a valid case. We are willing to protect you, but we protect you only against onslaught of the Arabs. But we cannot protect you from the Persian. And he said clearly, it doesn't work this way. It had to be protected all round. Jazakum Allah khair. Wait until Allah brings the victory. I swear.
Do you believe parliamentary democracy and parliamentary democratic politics is kufr?
Because the reference frame is kufr. If you believe that people are sovereign and they can make their own law without referring to revelation, that's kufr. That's a kufr from here. It's not because it's a democracy. It's referring to not a revelation. It's the kufr.
Okay, but if they refer to Islam, if they refer to Quran and Sunnah,
that's finished. That's an Islamic system. And that's the way Islamic system should be, because it's based on shura. So
what would your contention be with Ennahda in Tunisia, or the Freedom and Justice Party under Mohammed al-Massari, rahimahullah, or the Erdogan model? What would your main
because they're participating in kufr. They're ruling by kufr. The system, the constitution is clear kufr.
But it's something that they can work towards, work within, right?
And that's it, ijtihad. If they think they can't do it, you have seen that it's never worked.
So do you accept they say ijtihadi issue? Or
yeah, maybe if that's what you believe, it will get you there. And ijtihad, there's a possibility of thinking this way.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Ijtihad. I'm not saying it's not an ijtihad, but it has proven through history that it's a failed ijtihad. It never produced anything good. Even where it almost produced something like Mohammed Morsi, it's clearly collapsed.
My final question to you to wrap up today's podcast is, what has 19 months of the genocide in Gaza taught us as an ummah?
I think it did a good awakening. The Ummah is boiling against the rulers who are now being exposed more and more. And it forced people like the ruler of Saudi Arabia, who are still out and who will love to destroy the Palestinians, not only Hamas, would love to destroy them. And we know that from time King Abdulaziz. Let me remind the people, when the revolution was ongoing in the 30s, and Britain was sinking because they were focused on Germany and Hitler, they begged Abdulaziz, you have standing, the people believe you. Go and mediate and give them the promise, so on, so on, so on. The promise that there will be no more Jews coming in the country, we'll stop the infiltration, we'll do this and this. And he sent his two sons, I think Faisal and maybe Saud or Khalid, to persuade the Palestinians. The mistake that the Palestinians believed them. Even Abdullah, the grandfather of this one, Abdullah, was angry that the British did not ask him to participate. You don't have standing. The people have no respect for you. We need someone who is respected as Islamic and as authority. That's Abdulaziz bin Saud. And Saud knows very well that the British will break their promise. It's just to relieve the British from the pressure. Actually, before that, he asked through Philby, as testified in the book of Henderson, I think, the Mu'tamad, the British appointee in Basra, asked through Philby, Abdulaziz asks you, begs you that Britain should hold Palestine at least for 100 years. Don't let it go, otherwise we will be shaken.
Barely lost.
That forced them now to say, no, do something for Gaza, otherwise the throne will be gone. That's it. So it did plenty. It also gave a model of victory. Now, a country which is one of the poorest and one of the smallest was able to kick America's butt. Oh, Afghanistan already did it, but the philosophers will say, actually it's an agreement, it's a trick between the Afghani and the American. You will find people also, Muslims, saying that is agreement between the Houthi and American. You will find that.
Dr. al-Massari, it was an honor having you on. I know we covered like 100 years of history in an hour and a half. And I know that each subject we touched upon has...
Maybe one day we'll have
a more extended conversation. But I know that even the subjects that we discussed, they have vast literature and series commitment,
and many points, and sometimes many what they call it, anecdotal evidence, and sometimes many nice jokes we have missed today. Right. But let's make today the serious one. Another time we'll have some jokes.
Thank you.
So it doesn't become boring, because the listeners say, "Oh, for God's sake,
no,
half an hour with nothing to smile about."
No, it was like being in a history class today, albeit with some very wild takes at times. But Sheikh, Jazakallah khair.
Thank you for inviting me, and thanks for the listener for their patience, because if they stayed until now, their patience is really worth of.
I'm sure many will make it till the end. Jazakallah khair.
Recommendation, the excellent patience.
Brothers, sisters, friends and foes, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Brothers, sisters and friends, I hope you all enjoyed today's episode as much as I did. Do remember that you can find this episode on all 4 seasons on all the major audio platforms. And if you're tuning in via YouTube, don't be cheeky. Do remember to click subscribe to the 5 Pillars YouTube channel. Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.